what if tomorrow morning Jamaica strikes oil? Right? Does your light bill fall? Does JPS list? What happens to those energy stocks?
There is a company, United Oil and Gas Company. They have been working for many, many years, and they've been spending a lot of money to find out, okay, does Jamaica have oil? 40 million US has been spent apparently on this.
Years they've been exploring.
Could be as much as 7 billion. Could also be none. Could be maybe 100 million. It could be 1 billion. It could be 2 billion. How much would the 700 million barrels be worth?
2.3 billion US, sorry. So even though people want the dollar to go back and so on, it hits us in every other industry negatively. It can hit us in every other industry negatively. If we find oil, the government needs to somehow poach Nigel Clark back from the IMF. That's just it. Because anytime a country finds oil, there can be economic instability, even political instability. It's not always rainbows and butterflies when countries find these kind of things. Look at even Venezuela right now. They have the largest oil reserves. There is a low-key war in our backyard in the Caribbean going on right now. Hi guys, my name is Thaon Simms and welcome to the Limitless Podcast. Joining us as always is your co-host, Dr. Matthew Preston. Hail up the people, and Matthew.
Hey guys, what's good?
Excellent. Now, today, we had to ask ourselves a question. What if tomorrow morning, Jamaica strikes oil? Right? Does your light bill fall? Does JPS list? What happens to those energy stocks, like FESCO, RPL, Wigton, etc.? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Do they start running? Right. Today we unpack a lot of those questions and what that discovery would actually mean for the average Jamaican, from pump price to your electricity bill. So let's jump right into it. Preston, talk to me. Is this an exciting episode for you? Because to me it's exciting.
I think it's been one that we've been talking about for quite some time, right? Probably almost a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, I guess. I'm seeing some stuff in the papers about, hey, Jamaica possibly having oil. And, what are the implications of that? If oil were to be found here, what would happen? Or what could happen? And people, I guess, are making even a comparison to Guyana and Trinidad,
true.
because if oil or liquid or natural gas or so was found. So yeah,
I agree. You pay your light bill? Because for me, I pay the light bill. So it's just like this episode actually means a lot to me. And if Jamaica actually finds oil, it would mean a lot to me because I want a lower light bill, just like everybody else in Jamaica. I think we're paying
would it lead to a lower light bill?
Well, let's get into the episode and see. Let's jump right in. That's a really good question. I will figure that out because it may not be what everyone else thinks. So let's see. But first, let's jump into the reason for the episode because, it sounded preposterous to me over a year ago that Jamaica could find oil, but there have actually been movements in that area, in that segment, right? They've been exploring. You can talk to us about who's been exploring, tell us about that.
Yeah, so there is a company, it's actually a public company, which is, I guess, what the fact that they're public has probably gives you access to, I guess, other information it would be harder to get access to. They are listed on the London Stock Exchange. They're called United Oil and Gas Company. They have been working for many, many years, and they've been spending a lot of money to try to find out, okay, does Jamaica have oil? It's from what I understand, I'm not like a geologist or seismologist or whatever, but basically there are different technologies that can almost like look in some ways, or indicates with some amount of degree of certainty. So it's not 100%. No, it's actually not really close to 100%, but they can actually tell you, okay, this area down there, it might have oil. So you'll never really know for sure until you do some amount of testing, drilling, and whatnot. But the technologies can allow you to say, hey, there might be oil there. And I think even one of the reasons is because you mentioned we're close to something like Venezuela. Apparently, Venezuela, I don't even, did you know that Venezuela has the most oil in the world?
Yeah. Oh,
By
I
like
thought it was just this
far.
hemisphere. Oh.
No, as in the world. Maybe I can pull it up.
Is that why the US is, there's military operations now in Venezuela from the US? Or is it just, Maduro as the president? Or is that a smokescreen? Who knows? But hey, yeah. I know they have huge oil reserves in Venezuela, and there's a possibility of oil reserves. There might be some deposits on the southern aspect of Jamaica. So it's like the entire southern part of
I should probably actually show it on screen.
offshore.
But I was pulling up apparently how much. It's interesting. In terms of oil production, though, they have a lot of reserves, but oil production, they're not. And in years of production in reserve, 800 wow, interesting. Yeah, but see this, what's this, 300, it's just 300 million? Or this
This is proven reserves. So this is the barrels of oil.
Sorry, 300 billion. Wow. Yeah. And then Guyana is at, hold on.
You passed it a while ago.
Guyana's at 11 billion. Yeah. But yeah, before we get sidetracked, basically, I was saying that, hey, this company, United Oil and Gas Company, they're a public company in London. They have been working. Apparently, I don't think it's just them. Like, there was a point where there was another company actually doing it, and then United Oil essentially took over that, and then they have been continuing. But they've spent like a lot of money over the years. I see like 40 million US has been spent apparently on this. But yeah, like if
over 10 years, they've been exploring for about 10 years.
10 years. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they've been doing this for like a long time, spent a lot of money, and essentially there is the possibility that there's oil there. What I saw upwards limit of like I think it was 7 billion. So it could be as much as 7 billion. It could also be none. Could be maybe 100 million. It could be 1 billion. It could be 2 billion, but there's a lot of different areas that it could be, or there could be oil there. And yeah, they are putting in like it's weird because there's a lot of different approvals and there's like different steps. So it's not like you can just snap your finger and then just start drilling. There's like, you have to get legal, you have to get a license to do this and a license to do that, and like a beach license, and you have to try to go through like certain like
National Environmental and Planning Agency.
Yeah, because you don't want them to,
disrupt the environment. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like regulations and steps, and then money has to be spent, and there's time, like, so it's something that's been taking a while. And
show the website. So they actually have a website that they have a whole segment on Jamaica, so you guys can see exactly where they've been sampling and so on. And they've been doing this thing called piston. I don't know if it's called piston core sampling or survey.
I think that's the next step. I think they had to get the beach license to do that
first. Okay, but all it is you take it's like a cylindrical core, and you go into the seabed, and you basically just sample. You're taking up samples and you're seeing if there's any crude oil or any oil deposits in that area,
or things that would indicate oil,
better.
Yeah. So I mean, there's the website now. There's a lot of different because see, this is a document that came out September 2nd, 2025. they're saying the license enables United to undertake seabed sampling operations within the Walton Morant Basin, which is a name. Apparently, this Walton Morant is like two different parts. There's the Walton area and then the Morant area,
The
and
basin.
it's a decent. You mentioned south of Jamaica, yeah, just directly south of Jamaica,
Yeah.
and they got. When I look at it, I've been following it for a while, and there's a lot of extensions that have been happening over time because okay, they have to do this, and then they were like, the company itself was kind of going through some, I'd say, tough times because they had some operations that were in Egypt at one point, and then that ended up basically going bust because I think there was some political issues or something in Egypt, and then they basically had to, I think, almost like write that off or such. And then they had some UK or United Kingdom operations, and then that had to, I think that's kind of like on hold or something now. There was some issue with one of the wells with some water affecting the function, and they're gonna like try to, I think, do it in like a different location or try to circumvent that. So they aren't really. I mean, they've experienced life, like, you know, they haven't had the best time. And then this was what I was saying about the
show a
piston.
picture of the area, the Walter Morant.
Oh yeah,
basin.
There's actually a presentation that they have also online. Which one is it again? Oh no, this one. Yeah, they actually have a presentation online. Hold on. And they show it. Oh yeah, they show it here. So it's basically the south of Jamaica.
The entire south Jamaica.
Yeah. So there's all of these different yellow spots and stuff. If you're looking on the screen, because you've subscribed to us on YouTube, you can see that some of the different areas that they're, I guess, going after. I think that there's some that there's like more confidence, and there's other things too, because apparently there's even the depth of it. So it's like, okay, if you want to, some of them are, it's going to be easier to go after. So they're trying to like be, I guess, economical and say, oh, maybe we should go for this one because there's a decent level of certainty, and then it's also not ridiculous.
Shallow.
It's not very. I thought shallow made it easier though.
No,
the water
that's
shallow,
what I'm saying.
Oh, I think you said not shallow.
The area, no, shallow. It's shallower.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I've been seeing shallow, that a lot of those deposits are shallow or shallow. Yeah.
Yeah, the Walton and Morant. But yeah, basically they have been trying to, this company, they've been trying to do this. They've been spending money. What's interesting is that they've had to do a lot of secondary, I think you call it secondary offerings. You've had to do a lot of secondary offerings to try to, I guess, raise the money.
Open to like collaboration from other entities.
Well, they're gonna have to.
Yeah,
I think they're gonna have to. They're not open
they've spent
to it.
A lot. No, as in I remember them saying it like they want other people to invest in this.
Oh no, they're not that they just want. They have to.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying that they said it, like, you know, and obviously they have to.
Okay.
And if you look on their website,
this one's that's clear.
Yeah, because if you look on their website, you know, they tell you their business model. So if you click the About Us page and their business model, a lot of it is through mergers and acquisitions, and they want to just own a lot of oil assets.
They're broke. They're broke.
Yeah,
they're broke. That's why I say, this is my thing. Is it the position that they seem to be in is it's kind of weird because my understanding is that
to me it's like a Hail Mary still, because this could actually not work out.
It could be, if it works out. Yeah,
if it works out, it's great. But you know, I mean, look at the same thing that you spoke about with Egypt. Like that didn't work out for other reasons. They also explore, I think, the UK, and that still has not worked out as well as much. So you know, they have some oil discovery in the UK. They have an asset somewhere in the UK. It's onshore.
Well, it's nothing compared to, I think the size is not really much compared to
the prospects of Jamaica. I agree. Yeah. So, I mean, hey, 7 billion barrels of oil That would be worth
Mm-hmm.
what, 23
Hold
billion
on, I don't want to use the
around.
7 billion. What I'm saying is that even well, I guess it's hard to say conservative, but if
Those
a
are the estimates
certain
they gave.
percentage. So okay, I was trying to find out what is the percentage certainty that you generally can have based on the type of data that they had. I saw like a range. I think somewhere was saying like 10 to 20% certain that there is, and there was even one that I think went as high up as saying like 30%. So let's maybe even use the 10% because that's like the lower limits. So if the 7 billion is what's 10% of 7 billion? Or 700 million,
Zero.
right?
Yeah.
So 700 million barrels. What would be the 700 million? Because how much would the 700 million barrels be worth? I guess I don't know what's oil selling for, like 50 or 60 US
I
a
think
barrel or
about
something.
2.3 billion Jamaican. 2.3 billion US, sorry.
2 billion. Yeah, so it's like that's still the only weird part is I guess there could be stages, because what if they go to the first one and then okay they don't get it? But the thing is, even if they don't get it, like say the company itself can ends up going into like bankruptcy, someone would probably buy it then. Like another, I was thinking one of those other larger companies, like I don't know, Chevron or
Or ExxonMobil, like what they've done
or Exxon
for
Mobil
like
or
Guyana.
were both at. I remember there was some sort of dispute or something between. I thought at that point it was like Hess and something like that. There was, I
I
probably
don't
can't go
know.
into that, but there was a dispute about like who had the right for the shares and right of first refusal and something like that. But yeah, I guess I'm
Well,
just trying to think. Hey, even if they don't, I'm not like I'm trying to not use the best case scenario. So I was like, I'm trying to like be okay. What if even conservatively, it's not even 100% of what they think. What if it's like 5%? What if it's like 10%? Because if you're looking at that, and even if just a little works out, you bingo, like you know, like as I said, the company is, I don't know if I said it, but the company, because it's a public company, I think it's trading for, it goes like 3 or 4 mil US. Well, let's call it, no, I think it's like 5 mil. So let's say it's 5 mil US, right? So it's 5 mil US, and we're saying to have a contract that technically allows them, or
exclusive
if
rights.
they find, yeah, if they end up fine, yes, they will need some help, but if there is a high, so bam, say they get through, they do the next step, which is the piston core sampling, based on my understanding, which is the thing that basically says, hey, we will sample part of the sea, and then it will say, okay, if we find this, then there's a much even higher chance of oil being there. That lowers the risk of, or the perceived risk to a lot of people, to make it easier for them to get money. Someone would be more willing to invest in them, and because someone would have to put up a lot of that money, because it's like, I think the piston core sampling is like like maybe 2 to 3 million US it would cost. But then to do, I think, a test well and that other stuff is much, much more expensive, like 100 mil US. So that's like a big undertaking, you know, and I don't think our government would be able to handle something like that. So it would probably be something like,
I mean, it's not the government paying for a lot of this, is it? It's
no,
still
I'm saying more no, I'm saying in terms of the financing for something like that. So it's like if United says, hey, we have the contract, we can mine, there is oil, or there's a very, very, very high likelihood of oil there because of this new data. But we need some money. So they have to say, yo, can I borrow the money? Or is someone gonna like help, you know, take a stake in this with them?
Yeah.
Right. So that person will basically be putting in the money. So I guess you could say, equity or ownership of it. So they sell part of it to that person. So it's like,
imagine if
I
Jake
guess I
just buys
was
a piece. Start to think of things like that. I don't know if they could have. I mean, anything is possible because they could get a they could take out debt and buy it based on, we've seen some financial solutions like that where they
Mm-hmm.
based on cash flows, like,
Mm-hmm.
they earn money from and we're going to talk about JPS, but they earn money from us using, electricity and so on. So we pay JPS. So they could literally bundle together some debt package or some loan from whichever
Mm-hmm.
institution and base it on the revenues of us, them getting revenues from us and
Mm-hmm.
companies and so on for some cash, and then they split it with United. But either way, one of the things I wanted to talk about was more on the JPS side, because I think for the average Jamaican, right, how does us finding money affect just life on a whole? Like, how does it affect
Is that money or
electricity? How does
oil?
what oil? Sorry, how if we find oil? Sorry, yeah, my bad. I was thinking money.
It's the same thing,
Because
I
I
guess.
meant in, like, for me as an investor, how does that make
Mm-hmm.
me more money? But
Mm-hmm.
and it can make me more money by saving more money on my light bill if it does. But
Mm-hmm.
in order to meds that, I had to do a little bit of digging into, like, JPS itself. So right now, as we all know, JPS, Jamaica Public Service Company Limited, they're the
Mm-hmm.
primary electricity utility, like, company on the island, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is, and I realized if you look internationally, there are some other electric companies, or, like,
Mm-hmm.
utility companies that operate in a free market. But for us, and I'll explain what that means, but for us it's a bit different. It's more regulated,
Mm-hmm.
where the prices set, or the prices charged to customers, or the rates charged to customers, I should say, more like rates for
Mm-hmm.
electricity, they're actually overseen by a government body, which is the OUR, the Office of Utilities Regulation. So that's kind of what they do.
Mm-hmm.
The rates, they're closely overseen by the OUR. And so that's what I mean by a more regulated framework. That's what JPS has. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if it was in a free market, they could set their prices. They don't really have much oversight. The price is just the price, and you have to pay the
Mm-hmm.
price. Um, and so that in and of itself creates more of, like, a level of predictability for both JPS and us as consumers, because,
Mm-hmm.
if it means that the JPS's profits are determined by, like, government approved stuff like mechanisms, you have to meds it. So OUR, they set the base rates. They would set the base rates for electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to think about JPS as a company. So JPS has expenses like every other company. They have to invest in, what they call OPEX, or capital investments, in, like, their infrastructure. So, if a light post gone down, substation needs some upgrade, or,
Mm-hmm.
meters, all of those stuff. Even, like, servicing debt, all of those things, JPS still has those expenses.
Mm-hmm.
So, they have to meds a lot of those things. But, and then how JPS also, their business model is,
Mm-hmm.
they actually operate, do you know how many power plants JPS owns in Jamaica? They own and actually operate a good amount.
11.
I think it's more than half of them. I think they have, like, a 50% market share. So they own and operate, like, a lot of
Mm.
companies that generate energy. So I think it's like
Mm-hmm.
over 500 megawatts, and we in Jamaica, we have a total of 1,000 megawatts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, like, oil fired stuff, gas fired stuff, some renewable plants, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And JPS right now has a full monopoly on transmission and distribution. So, like, right now, under the license, and you guys can check it out in the Electricity Act and all of those things, but JPS owns all the transmission lines, which is moving bulk power now from those places that generate the electricity to, like, population centers. And then they also own, they have the monopoly on the distribution grid. So that's more delivering power to homes, to businesses, etc. So they're the
Mm-hmm.
ones that own that. And we spoke about it in another podcast episode, on that agreement changing. The minister Daryl Vaz actually said they would renegotiate that contract, so that they may not have a full monopoly anymore. We will see what actually happens. I know the contract is slated to expire in 2027, but I just think that
Mm.
that has like a lot of knock-on effects for just the market.
Mm-hmm.
So JPS right now is the only entity allowed, by law, to supply electricity to Jamaican end users with so there's no real retail competition in that space. So yeah, it's just understanding that JPS has that hold on our electricity, and you need oil, and you need natural gas, you need those things to actually generate electricity, and then JPS owns 51% of that. I don't see why they wouldn't also take a stake in this project as well, because I think that if you're JPS, what are the things that cost you a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to import oil in order to make electricity, because they burn oil and so on to power these turbines to get electricity in my home. Like, that's how you get electricity. That's a
Mm-hmm.
simple version, I would say, from my understanding. Please don't come for me in the comments. But if now we don't have to necessarily import as much oil, or if we're
Mm-hmm.
producing locally, would
Mm-hmm.
it actually be cheaper? I feel like it could be cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
What you think? Because if JPS now, if the majority of the cost is, because you have to buy oil, and you have to buy
Mm-hmm.
it with US dollars and so on,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't that reduce the price of
The
electricity?
thing is, um, over the last, I guess maybe 5 years or maybe even 10 years, Jamaica has
Mm-hmm.
been switching from less reliance on oil and more reliance on liquefied natural gas
Mm-hmm.
or LNG. So I think up to the last time I checked, I think it was about two thirds of electricity was
Yeah.
generated by liquefied natural gas. So you had generators that burned that. So the percentage that came from oil has been decreasing over the last few years. So I was thinking, not to say that JPS wouldn't buy in. I'm not sure, but I don't think it would. It's not, if we had been heavily relying on oil still, and then we found oil, I think it would have a greater impact versus now we're less heavy. Not to say that it won't have an impact on the country. I'm saying just specifically on like JPS's demand, like Jamaica's demand for oil. I don't think is very heavy right now. So yes, we have like cars and other things, but in
Mm-hmm.
terms of energy, which I think is, I guess, would be more like the production of energy or electricity. I don't think the
Well.
demand is that high right now. But I guess then, if that then came up, it would be interesting because we've been switching from oil to LNG, and then now we'd have lots of oil, or if there is oil, you would
Mm-hmm.
then get suddenly. So I guess you could, in a situation like that, I guess it would be like, okay, let's export it, and maybe there are other countries in the Caribbean and other parts of the world that would want the oil. So if we exported the oil, we would get people wanted Jamaican dollars, increase the demand for the Jamaican dollar, and that could actually even strengthen the dollar. Imagine a dollar that's back at $100 to $1.
Is that really good though?
Well, people want it.
But even if people want it,
Mm-hmm.
does that mean it's good? Because there are a lot of things you touched on, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
touch on this point
Mm-hmm.
soon. Uh, well, okay, I'll touch on it now. Then you're saying that if the dollar strengthens,
Mm-hmm. Or basically, the
um,
demand for the dollar, people would
yeah.
want Jamaican dollars more. So not just from
So
tourism, but
okay,
yeah,
this is
not just from
yeah. So we're
bauxite, but from
assuming
oil.
we're assuming we're exporting oil now. We're
Yeah. So we
exporting
found a
oil.
lot of oil.
Mm-hmm.
United
And now
Bingo,
we're
the stock
barreling.
flew 10x.
Mm-hmm. And
Mm-hmm.
so now we're exporting the oil.
We all
And
became
so
millionaires.
if we're exporting oil, other countries around the world have to buy oil from us,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd
Well,
use
they don't
our
have
local
to,
current.
but if we can
No, but
produce
they
it at
could.
a price,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, they would. Yeah,
This is just assuming that everything is copacetic, everything is good. We have
mm-hmm.
our it's cheap for us to drill the oil, and we're barreling it and we're selling it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But other countries would buy our oil,
Mm-hmm.
but they have to pay Jamaican dollars for it. So that's how our dollar gets strengthened, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'd have to, so the demand for the
Well, they don't
JMD
have
has
to. I guess
increased.
we would work. It would
I mean, we
depend on,
have
I
our
guess,
own
how
local
we.
currency. Why would we wouldn't use the US dollar? I don't think we would. I don't
Mm,
think it benefits us, because then you know that just changes the FX prices, foreign exchange prices, and so on. So I think we would use the JMD just to
mm-hmm.
but that would strengthen the
Mm.
JMD.
Do you know how Guyana
And
does it?
how does Guyana do it?
Yeah, like when you have to. I think Guyana's more LNG though, or is it or natural gas versus oil, or am I mixing
I'm
that
not
up?
sure, but I don't want to detract from the point,
Oh,
because
sorry.
the point for me was um going back to a thing called Dutch disease. And I think I mentioned it on the podcast once, but Dutch disease, when uh basically what happened at the time, I think I'm not sure if it was Norway that had Dutch disease. Trying to remember the country, but basically what happened is they found oil.
Netherlands, the Netherlands.
Netherlands. Was it the Netherlands? I can't remember. But they found oil, and what happened was, you know, let's say Jamaica right now, our biggest product is what? Tourism, right? Tourism is a
Mm-hmm.
product. But if we find a ton of oil now and we're exporting a lot of oil, this becomes one of the major products, and there's a huge demand for the Jamaican dollar. And so the
Mm-hmm.
value of the Jamaican dollar
Mm-hmm.
increases. It's hard now to start exporting certain things, because we won't be as competitive, because it's
Mm-hmm.
that much more expensive. Like
Mm-hmm.
so it's harder to export things, um, and that may not bode well for anything outside of oil. I think that's the major thing. So even though people want the dollar to go back and so on, I think it hits us in every other industry negatively. Like, I think it can hit us in every other industry negatively. I would look at, I remember doing some research on, like, even Nigeria. And when Nigeria found oil, before that time, Nigeria used to produce, I think, a lot of cocoa or something like that. They were like a huge exporter in cocoa. And they found oil, and the government started pumping more money into, like, just oil, and building out their whatever oil things and so on. And all of that money was spent boosting oil, and they get exports and so on. But after a while, you know, agriculture got left behind, because at that point, the products are no longer as competitive. So it's just to avoid that. I think that's the major thing, to avoid things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, so you see a lot of companies, that's where the sovereign wealth fund came out. And that's another thing. Sovereign wealth fund is basically when a country, it used to happen with oil rich countries, where they
Mm-hmm.
run a budget surplus. So they're making a lot more money now than they're
Mm-hmm.
spending. So what are they going to do with the money? Yes, you can hold on to cash, you can hold on to gold and so on, but what they also did was they invested that money
Mm-hmm.
internationally. And so they'd invest in companies in different countries and so on. And it's basically securing, like, future cash flows. So you invest in assets abroad, like, let's say you invest, Jamaica is making a lot more money now. So we set
Mm-hmm.
up a sovereign wealth fund, which was also in the JLP's manifesto. We actually said it in our podcast. And, they actually plan to do a sovereign wealth fund. But imagine having the capital to now invest in different assets across the world. And you get in, let's say it's some companies, some real estate, you get in, like, cash returns and so on. Or you just getting returns on your investment, whether it's cash or non-cash, and so on. That secures Jamaica financially for a while, because we're not solely
Mm-hmm.
dependent on tourism. We're not solely dependent on oil. We have no more diversified revenue streams, which is always good for like shocks. Because look at COVID and what happened
Mm-hmm.
during COVID time, right? There was no tourism. So imagine you had another revenue line
Mm-hmm.
to ease a lot of that
Ease
pressure.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good old diversification.
Good old diversification. Yeah, bro. So it's just another thing to worry about, that whole Dutch disease thing. In case
Why is
that
it
does
called
happen.
Dutch disease?
Try to remember, man. I remember looking at it though. Let me see if I can find it. Because was it the Netherlands? I somehow feel like it's the Netherlands. But no, I thought it was Norway, but I can't find it. Yeah. So economic. So it's the relationship between an increase in the economic development of a specific sector, and they give the example as natural resources, like oil, and a decline in other sectors like manufacturing or agriculture. It was Netherlands for real. Well, obviously Dutch. Come on, Thaon. And they
Mm-hmm.
found a large natural gas field in 1959. Yeah. So what happened was that while revenues increased in that sector, so the oil sector, the economy's currency becomes stronger, which means it appreciates compared to foreign currencies, like the exchange rate and so on. And this results in the country's other exports being more expensive for other countries to buy. So imagine now, people used to spend $100 on a vacation in Jamaica. And at that time, the dollar was, it was like 1 to 160. So they would theoretically spend 16 grand. That's just for argument's sake. But
Mm-hmm.
now it's no longer 1 to 160, right? It's 1 to 100. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've lost I've lost it, bro. But you somehow end up spending more because your money is now worth less. Like that 100 US now is actually
Mm-hmm.
worth
That's 10
less. So
grand.
you
I
have
think
to,
you first said what,
exactly,
16 grand to 10 grand.
to 10 grand. So now, you have to put on our next, I
So
guess,
if the
60 US.
vacation costed, yeah, so basically the 100 US that they had before, that they could have said, hey, this is an oversimplification, but
Naturally.
they put that down and they said, hey, next year, I'm going to use that 100 US that I put down to go to a vacation in Jamaica. Or
To
let's say
spend
it's
on
even
like
to
one
buy a product.
Airbnb.
Suppose it was,
It's a one
any of those
Airbnb.
different things. Yeah, so it's 100 US. And then in Jamaica on the Airbnb website, it's selling for, as you said,
16
I think
grand
16,000. So
per
at this
night.
time, it's enough. 100 US is 16 grand. They paid 100 US, they get it. But then if the dollar were to appreciate or increase, so then that basically means instead of the 1 to 160, so $1 gives you 160 Jamaican, you're saying it's 1 US to 100 Jamaican dollars. That same 100 US is now worth less Jamaican dollars. So it would only be worth 10,000. So the thing that could still cost, what if the price even went up, instead of it being 16,000, 17,000? Your 100, you now just have 10 grand. So your worst can't afford it now. We can afford it less now.
Instead of the 100 US, you have to find an
yeah,
70
so it's more
US
expensive
on top of
to
it.
you. Yeah,
and so that would deter people from, that would lower tourism numbers, because tourism is now much more expensive.
So I mean, you have to. It could, yeah, because if you don't, basically you're increasing the, you're reducing the.
You're increasing
supply.
The cost of the.
Yeah, you're reducing the supply of the money. So if you don't increase the demand, so I guess what you would say to try to offset that, like what the government could do is try to market more and make it that, hey, more people want to come. So if you had an influx of a lot of people coming to the country because of something else, that could, I guess, help to offset that.
So what governments now do is that they have to spend a lot of money, not just on that one thing that's booming like that natural resource, but you have to spend money in all the other industries and make sure everything is growing, at a similar rate, I would say, just to kind of offset that whole thing of Dutch disease. So, I mean, it's tricky, bro. In reality, the only person I trust to do things like this is if we find oil. Let me just say this: if we find oil, the government needs to somehow poach Nigel Clark back from the IMF. That's just it. That's all I can say, because I don't know how else we'd maneuver all of these new things. Because anytime a country finds oil, there can be economic instability, even political instability, right? It can change leaders. There's corruption that can come into play. There's so many other things that can come into play. You really need a strong government to manage a lot of these things, because there's all of this has trickle down effects to us as consumers. So it's just something to just, it's another thing. It's not always rainbows and butterflies when countries find these kind of things. Because I mean, we said it before. Look at even Venezuela right now. They have the largest oil reserves and so on, but there is a low-key war in our backyard in the Caribbean going on right now. So yeah, it's just something to just keep abreast of. Another thing I would say though, because even Guyana, we were talking about oil prices in Jamaica, and separate from electricity prices, but oil prices. I don't think necessarily fuel prices would, drop, because right now, right, oil is a globally traded commodity. So even if Jamaica starts to pump its own crude oil, all right, will we also develop refineries to change that into like diesel and gasoline and LPG, which is liquefied petroleum gas? Will we have refineries to do all of those things, or will we
the
do what we
existing
did with
refinery
bauxite?
is pretty outdated.
Yeah, because what we used to do with bauxite, we just used to export it. They made aluminum, and then we'd import the aluminum. If we had the refineries here, we wouldn't have to. If we didn't have the refineries, we'd have to just export the crude oil and still buy, the other things, those other petroleum products. But if we had our own refineries, that could offset a lot of things. But either way, I think a lot of the oil prices would still be priced at market rates, unless the government is the only person that can intervene. So, like, let me give you an example. Guyana, right? When it had its oil boom, they still had the same international prices at their pump. Only reason they have, I think, the lowest prices now in the Caribbean is because the government had to intervene. They had, they did some cuts of like fuel tax and stuff like that, to give like consumers relief. They had a lot of, because even now we have tax on fuel. We have GCT. I think we have another tax too. There are a few taxes that are in Jamaica on oil, on oil, I believe. I can't remember them though. It's like a VAT, but I think that's the same as like GCT. There's a special consumption tax, I remember too, on oil. So there are a few taxes on oil, right? There are quite a few taxes. So the only way is if the government says, yo, we're gonna spare Jamaicans and not collect all of this, like a lot of tax revenue, and do a lot of tax cuts. But we've seen in other countries that to do that, it comes at a cost. And I'll bring up a country like Trinidad. So Trinidad actually, they had long subsidized gas prices, and they kept prices low for a long, long time. But for them, that incurred like a lot of costs. There are a lot of fiscal costs. When you think about it, bro, like if gas prices were cheaper, that's not necessarily the best thing. Like, yes, it has some benefits, but if gas prices are cheaper, would that mean more cars on the road? And imagine what we're feeling right now with the amount of cars on the road, and school just opened up. To me, that's like more cars on the road. another thing is, even in Trinidad, I was telling you about my friend who has the 3 bedroom and the central air, and they run it all day, all night, every single day. They don't really turn it off. And for
Mm-hmm.
them, their light bill is like, it's equivalent to maybe like 5,000 Jamaican light and water bill. So it's not that
Mm-hmm.
much money that they're really spending on those things. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if it's that low, will we have that same scarcity mindset? Will we have that mindset to conserve energy and those kind of
Mm-hmm.
things? I don't know if we would. I doubt that. I really unsure. Because if my light bill was, you know, 2 grand a month,
Mm-hmm.
would I lock off my AC? I mean, yes, I would still would. I'm that type of person, but I don't know if everyone would.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, bro, like it's those kind of things I have to worry about. And even now, Trinidad is faced with a lot of economic issues and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a lot of that also stemmed from, them incurring, like, those heavy fiscal costs. I'm gonna send you an article actually. There's actually an article about that stuff. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think Jamaicans would still pay close to market rates for fuel. I don't think it would necessarily change as much. The
Mm-hmm.
only the only company I think that would change for is probably JPS, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe the government would give them, special rates. I'm not entirely sure. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. What do you think?
Mm, I don't know how much of the gasoline that's sold to like the different, what do you call it, the gas station companies like the Fesco, the RPL, the Texaco, the
Mm-hmm.
Rubis, how much of the gasoline that they sell to us, like the retail or the consumers, how much of that comes from Petrojam versus like how much is imported?
Uh.
Because I was thinking, if say a decent portion of that is coming from Petrojam, and then Petrojam
Mm-hmm.
right now has to import it from, I don't know where we buy oil from, but say it was Guyana, and
Mm-hmm.
then Guyana charges, I don't know, 60, say it's 60 US per, or not Guyana, Trinidad, 60 US per barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And then aren't there things like imports, like don't they have to import it? And then there's like a tax on that.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if it was produced here, wouldn't you not have that tax? So Petrojam could just buy
Well, what are
from,
we exporting it? What's the price that we're exporting it to? As
no, not
because are we
export.
gonna
Well, no, I'm saying
are we gonna?
Petrojam is buying,
Mm-hmm.
like say there was a Jamaican refinery,
Mm-hmm.
Petrojam is buying from that refinery, which is in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no tax, there's no import tax on that, versus
Okay.
buying from Trinidad. So say I don't know what the import tax is, but say it's 15%, 20%, there'd be that cut, that cost would be cut there. And so depending on, I guess, the pricing model of that, they could then sell it cheaper technically to the
True.
gas station companies. But I guess I'd have to look into what percentage of the gasoline and stuff comes from that. So that's what I was thinking. Um,
Mm.
yeah, there's a lot of, I guess, rabbit holes there. Have you even thought about how it could impact our renewable energy transition? Because if with the money that you could make, the government could make from that, you could then use to say, hey, let's invest in more solar panels or wind turbines or nuclear energy or something that's not a non-fossil fuel, not liquefied natural gas that we keep having to just buy. I don't know.
Well, have you seen what the US is doing? Because at
It was.
first, so I think in the Biden administration, they were more pro renewables and things like that. And then when Trump came in, they were
Mm-hmm.
like, "Nah, we're going back to, oil
Mm-hmm.
and coal and those kind of things."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if so. I in an ideal world, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to have a good mix between, renewables and non-renewables.
Mm-hmm.
So between oil and solar and wind and oil and those kind of
Mm-hmm.
things, you want a good mix. If
Mm-hmm.
we do find oil, we would obviously have to invest more in that sector to grow it. because you need the refineries, as we talk about. We need the infrastructure, more jobs for people. We need training, all of
Mm-hmm.
those things. So you need to definitely invest a bit more into it. But
Mm-hmm.
would renewables, like companies like Wigton and so on, would they get more love? I honestly think so, because one, our Vision 2030, I don't think the Vision 2030 would change in that regard. I think we just now more export more, so the government would make more money from exports and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we would still want to diversify a bit more, because in the near
Mm-hmm.
term, oil revenue could actually fund more renewable projects as the government pursues an energy mix, and they have
Mm-hmm.
more, the GPE. You see more offers, you know more tenders being put out,
Mm-hmm.
so people bid more for those kind
Mm-hmm.
of offers, and so on, for renewables specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And because we have that as a target, and there's still climate commitments we have to worry about too,
Mm-hmm.
because we're in the Caribbean, you know and we feel the brunt of climate change significantly. I think oil money itself could provide capital to achieve those, because can you imagine, we are an oil producing country,
Mm-hmm.
yet most of our energy is being generated from renewables.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost unprecedented. I think that would be great. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it would bode well for Wigton and its future expansions and so on, and
Mm-hmm.
companies like Wigton as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anything necessarily would change for their existing operations, because they have power purchase agreements in place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, but I think
Mm-hmm.
investors like us will be watching for policy signals. Will Jamaica double down? Will we see more contracts being offered for
Mm-hmm.
different projects? Uh, those are the things I'd start to look at.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe I think Wigton would make actually more money if Jamaica discovers
Mm.
oil, which is funny. But what do you think
Interesting.
about like companies like Fesco and RPL? Like, how, if we find oil, how would that change anything? Because
Mm-hmm.
those companies distribute fuel. So how does
Mm-hmm.
that change anything?
Yeah, I
What do you
mean,
think?
I guess I was thinking if the assumption I was making earlier was right, that if a lot of the gasoline that's sold in Jamaica ends up being made by Petrojam,
Mm-hmm.
and then if Petrojam could buy from that refinery instead of having to import it, it could make it cheaper,
True.
and it would be interesting to say, okay, if the price of gasoline came down, how would that? I guess I'm trying to say, how would that actually affect the demand, though? Because it could be cheaper. Would people start to drive more? Would the
I
company
think people
actually
would
end
drive
up
more.
selling more? Because they'd probably try to keep their margins. I don't know. You
Mm-hmm.
think their margins would really change that much? Probably not. So they would
Mm,
try to, like, I'm taking like Fesco RPL though, because I
yeah,
don't
I'm
think their
thinking Fesco
margins would
RPL
change
as
that
well.
much. So I'm just thinking, would they actually sell more volume?
Well, RPL would benefit a lot. Well, no, both have LPG too. Because when I think about even the LPG is, I think,
Mm-hmm.
the top thing,
Liquefied.
that's
Um.
petroleum gas. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you can Google fractional distillation of crude oil. There's a chart my dad showed me once when I was younger, on the distillates from crude oil. So this is in a refinery. The process to separate crude oil is fractional distillation, and there are
Mm-hmm.
different components. And LPG is the lightest thing, right? It's the smallest set of what they call hydrocarbons. So they come off first. Um, both Fesco and RPL supply
Mm-hmm.
cooking gas, which is like propane and butane, and that's LPG in reality. So if we have refineries in Jamaica, we'd produce more LPG. So it would possibly be cheaper because we wouldn't be importing it, as you're saying. So I think both that and automated fuel would be cheaper. I also think the knock-on effects of just an oil boom means a lot of other sectors would boom. So even like construction and so on. So I'm thinking
Mm.
you're gonna and manufacturing, etc. So there will be more cars on the road. You have to transport more things. I think there's just gonna be higher volumes of fuel sold if it is a bit cheaper. Um, as the prices come down, demand can increase. So I think they would make a lot more money. I think there would be a greater fuel demand, driven by the same booming economy. I
Mm-hmm.
think the government would have to improve a lot of fuel infrastructure and storage, and there would be a heavy reliance on a lot of these distributors. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I think it could. I think a lot of those stocks would start to boom. I think Fesco and RPL, you'd see price movements for both.
Mm. So you'd
Um,
sell?
no, what do you mean? Sell RPL or Fesco?
Yeah, so you'd sell into that demand then?
Oh,
'Cause like you're
you're
saying the
assuming
news
I own.
comes out. What?
You'd assume I'm a shareholder.
Yeah, that's as in you're buying now for that to happen.
Yeah, yeah, I'd sell
Mm.
into that demand
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Because I think at that point, you hear that, oh, Jamaica discovers oil. Then what's the next thing? You go see a lot of these energy companies, the stock prices start to tick up just based on, it's just speculation and of what can actually happen. So you'd see an initial jump likely, and then maybe expectations are tempered when they realize it's going to take a couple of years for certain things to actually develop and us to actually start extracting oil and
Mm-hmm.
so on. So it would cool down, but I would sell into that initial demand for sure.
Mm.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then we
Yeah.
didn't even talk about JPS too, because what would happen with JPS if we discover oil as a company? Like, would we
Mm-hmm.
still list JPS? I, I, I don't fully know. There are scenarios where we could, and there are scenarios where we couldn't. So I don't know. What do you think would happen to JPS in all of this? Because
Yeah.
would the
Um.
contract be renegotiated? Would there be
Mm-hmm.
favorable terms now because of this oil and so on? Like there's so many things you have to start thinking about too. Because there's a scenario where the oil we discover oil, and it can strengthen JPS's position because it's cheaper local fuel. So that would reduce JPS's fuel costs significantly. And so the government might actually be less aggressive in that whole renegotiation if we
Mm-hmm.
have more energy security. So, and then, as I said, some of the things we're speculating if JPS decides to take a piece in the company that's either refining the oil or extracting the oil or so on,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that seems very much attractive. There's no, I mean, at that point, if the government is selling their stake, their 20% stake or 19.99% stake in JPS,
Mm-hmm.
that would look very attractive to shareholders with the prospect of that. So that would be a nice IPO. That JPS IPO
Mm-hmm.
would be chef's kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then there's the other side because oil could also weaken, I think, the JPS's leverage. So, suppose the government decides they're flush with oil revenue, they could actually invest in, and they go through with this whole, JPS no longer has the monopoly and so on. They could actually invest in another competing infrastructure on a whole. Because I could see us creating a whole national oil company
Mm-hmm.
just to challenge JPS and so on. And then you could have a sovereign wealth fund that finances alternative energy providers. You could see a lot more push into the renewables, as we're saying. So I don't know. I don't
Mm.
know.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of the most interesting parts. I think is the whole United Oil and Gas Company that I was talking about. because it's a public company, you could actually find a way to invest in it if you thought that, hey, this was likely to go through. But it's interesting because
Or
I'm
track
seeing them
it.
doing a lot of
Or track it. You wouldn't
yeah,
necessarily
or
have
track
to
it.
invest
Yeah.
in it, but you
Mm-hmm.
could, because as you say, it's a public company, they have to
Mm-hmm.
release statements and so on. So you could see
Mm-hmm.
how, like, the progress. Like,
Mm-hmm.
are we getting closer? Did they find
Mm-hmm.
anything? I mean, that would be in the news too, but you could track it faster that way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, because as over time, as more information comes out, it could reach a point where someone says, hey, I now feel comfortable enough to actually invest in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I don't think I still think I need to do more research, but I do see, I guess, the possibility of a play here. If they do end up finding oil, if it is a decent enough amount, it could, I guess, be quite interesting. The only thing that not only thing, but one of the things I am worried about, I'm seeing that they have been doing a lot of secondary offerings and dilute, like some people have been diluted, I guess, a lot over time,
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that they will likely have to continue to do more over now. So then I'm kind of wondering, I'm like, and then sometimes I see the price comes out below the market price.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll issue at different prices. So I guess I worry that, hey, there's a raise. Other things I should even look into I think retail investors can apply for the what you call it, secondary offering or whatever. But like I'm worried, I'm like, they're buying now at 20 cents
Mm-hmm.
for, it's not even 20 cents. I think it's like it's a penny stock in like 0.0016 pounds. I think that is like 30 Jamaican dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just double check.
Hmm.
Or something like that. But
I don't know. My play wouldn't be that company. Like, yes, there's that opportunity,
uh-huh.
but I think the overall euphoria of finding oil on the market,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many other opportunities here on the JSE that I would actually look
Mm-hmm.
at. So remember how I said there would be, like, once there's an oil boom, it likely, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of those things spur a construction boom, and we've seen it in other countries too, right? Where new roads, bridges, hotels, industrial facilities, a lot of those
Mm-hmm.
things can be based on, if we need to have a refinery, a petrochemical plant, those kind of things. So I would look at listed companies in construction. So things like cement, like Carb Cement. I
Mm-hmm.
think Carb Cement would be a huge company that would benefit from something like this.
Why?
Like a huge, well, it's just, so oil or gas, you just have to, I think a lot of companies would, just the boom, the manufacturing boom. So as I said, new roads, new infrastructure on a whole, you have to start developing. So you
Mm-hmm.
need more cement for things like that. Um, so, or even manufacturing firms too would also increase. But I think mainly, Carb Cement, I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, what are the other, there's Atlantic, that's in construction. Omni is also in construction too. Ish, yeah.
Mm. I don't know. I
Which other
guess the thing
construction
is,
company?
yes, those could benefit, but I'm just trying to feel like if it does work out, the level of benefit that this company could get could be so direct. Like the payout could be, um, like ridiculous.
Agreed. Agreed. I was just
So,
mentioning the JSE because it's the JSE,
yeah, yeah,
but
definitely.
and even the JSE, I think the
Mm,
JSE could see a lot more increased trading activity and maybe,
mm-hmm,
hey, new listings. Because imagine, as I said, JPS
mm-hmm,
lists, bro, that's a lot of money that the JSE itself, as the listed company, that
mm-hmm,
would be a lot of money for them, because that would be a huge offer. And then you see a lot more trading activities and so on. I even think of like financial institutions too. like banks and investment
Mm-hmm.
firms and so on, like NCB, Scotia,
Mm.
etc. I think they could
Yeah, that
also
would be
experience
something I could
growth.
say, like a financial. I guess there would be
Hmm.
some sort of
New
financial
projects.
deals that need to happen, loans and business and other stuff. Technically, the finance
Hmm.
companies could benefit from that, like a NCB,
Yeah,
Scotia. Mm.
yeah.
I'm interested to
I'd see
see
them.
even how many people do you think when Guyana found oil? How many people do you
Hmm.
think came from other countries to Guyana because of that? Like, how much did their population like spike massively when that happened?
I
Because
don't know,
people
but
just said, "Hey." Mhm.
I'm not sure. But I know we had companies down there, like Dollar. Dollar went down there because of that boom. So if
Well,
companies
they
are going,
left,
I'm pretty sure.
or
Well, they
they
left.
left or they're
True.
leaving, or yeah.
I don't know if they're fully tied. I think they're fully tied up. I need to double check. But if companies went, people definitely went. Because imagine right now, to build the highway and to maintain the highway, we employ China Harbor. So we already have, people from China coming and working and so on. And so they live here. I've actually seen them as like patients
Mm-hmm.
in my practice. So, you know, they spend their money here because they're earning a living and so on. So they contribute to our economy. So I could
Mm-hmm.
see a lot more people even moving, whether back to Jamaica, whether we're hiring top talent or any form of
Mm.
talent. I'd say a lot more people moving back here
When
or
was
moving
oil?
to
When was
Jamaica.
oil found in Guyana again? Was it
I'm not
2015?
sure.
I was just
I
checking the
think so.
population charts. Said, yeah, 2015. So
Hmm.
2015 they had 758,000. The next year 763,000. There was like a kind of spiked a bit. 2020 800,000. And now they're at 825,000. So
Yeah.
from 758. Well, let's say 2014. So that's like 755 to 825.
Hmm.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. I think a
Yeah.
lot of those things do take time because you still have to build the infrastructure and so on. Because Guyana right
Yeah.
now, I think it's a lot of it is still forest. A lot of
Mm.
majority of the population doesn't even live in 50% of the country. I
Mm.
think
Oh
it's
wow.
just a tiny amount of the country that's inhabited by
Mm-hmm.
people. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, can you imagine that they don't even have 1 million people, and we have almost 3 million people in Jamaica?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think for even the average Jamaican though, a lot more opportunities would open up in terms of jobs, because as I said, people would move back, but you'd need like local demand as well. So whether it's in the oil exploration or production or so on,
Mm-hmm.
when you think of direct jobs like, we probably need more geologists, engineers, um, people on the
Mm.
drill rig working as well.
Mm-hmm.
I even think about like, supply boat crews and those kind of things. And then they're indirect jobs because you need
They need
transportation,
food.
food,
Yeah.
hospitality, and you need like a medical, at least a medical center or two dedicated
Mm-hmm.
to the staff there.
Mm-hmm.
You need a lot more. So
Housing.
it would
How would that affect
housing.
housing?
Mm-hmm. I would need houses for you. And then where it's
Mm.
gonna be developed? Is it Kingston? I hope it's not Kingston. If this happens, anywhere else, man, anywhere else. Kingston don't need more people. Trust me. Develop
Mm-hmm.
develop somewhere in Clarendon or something like that, but not Kingston, please.
Mm.
But we have the port and things, so yeah. But hopefully it's not
Mm.
Kingston. But yeah, man. I mean, I think the average citizen could see a lot of benefit if this does happen. And I even think of other countries and what oil has done for them, making things cheaper, investing more in infrastructure and so on. I think that just bodes very much, it bodes well for the average Jamaican, in my opinion, because we have more revenue. The government would be making more money, and then we have more
Mm-hmm.
money, more things to invest in with the government making more. Like imagine paying down more on debt. What that would do for us in terms of borrowing
Mm-hmm.
costs, finance costs for the country.
Mm-hmm.
And then investing now, I think even healthcare, could it actually be free? Because it's not really free right now. But could it actually be free?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think if we find oil, healthcare could be free. Um, there are a lot of other things I think that can happen. So I'll be watching this one closely. What
Mm-hmm.
about you?
Yeah, no. I think it'd be interesting. I'm gonna try. I think there are a lot of different ways you could possibly benefit from this.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's you're gonna buy United Oil and Gas, or just like a JSE company, or you start your own business related to something like this, I don't know. It could be interesting. So yeah, I'm gonna keep following it up, and I think it's something that this is just what's going on now, because I think we could do another video in 6 months, and there's even more information, another video a year from now. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
time, so maybe we'll make this even into a series.
We could. I guess we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Drop a
But
comment below and like the video
yeah.
if we should.
Yeah, guys,
Mm-hmm.
if you guys like this video, please don't forget to subscribe, and ring that notification bell just so you know when we post. But we post every Friday, same time, 4 p.m. But thank you guys so much for watching us on the Limitless Podcast. Share it with a friend, and as Preston said, drop a comment below. What do you think will happen if we get oil, and where do you want to see a lot of the investments? Because we would love to know. And what stock would you pick? What would be your number one stock to buy if we found oil? Drop it in the comments below. Thank you guys so much, and as always, stay limitless. Out.
Peace.